February, and Microsoft, to its great credit, takes care of everything. You just show up. Their legal department does the visa work, for example, and they make all the travel arrangements. Although they assumed that being Canadian, I would fly through Toronto, because all Canadians fly through Toronto. Microsoft interview loops used to be famously grueling. You spend the entire day there. You start with an HR interview to make sure you're sane and bathed, and if so, then you're off to a series of 5 one-hour coding interviews where you stand at a whiteboard and you answer brain teasers and write C in assembly code until you can't go any further. They push you until they stop it, or they'll break you, and then depending on how those first 5 go, you might make it to the as appropriate, which is the hiring manager. The answer is Boolean at each of these steps, hire or no hire. There are no maybes. You only get to the final interview if everyone else has said hire, generally. Since the team must be fully bought in on who gets hired, it's not just up to the boss. The coding problems are simple tasks that you can fit onto one whiteboard, like how to reverse a doubly linked list, or how to count the number of bits that are set in a word, attempt to factor a prime, that sort of thing, where there's an obvious and trivial approach that can be refined and optimized. You want to see their thought process, and you want to see what they consider good enough. Take the approach or the case of counting the number of bits that are set in a 32-bit word. The naive approach is to OR it with 1, increment the counter, shift the word, and repeat. Do that 32 times and you've got your answer. But that can be improved. You can stop as soon as the remaining word is 0, right? And as the interviewer, you watch to see if the person picks up on those little optimizations as they chew on the problem. But what about long runs of zeros separated by ones? That seems like a waste of time. Well, it turns out that instead of adding with 1, you add with the number itself less 1, and that way you only do 1 operation per actual bit that was set. If 3 bits are set, you only do 3 tests. In other words, there's the simple answer, the fast answer, and the smart enough to get yourself hired answer. I learned quickly that I'd made it, and right after final exams finished here at the U of R, I flew down. After a couple hours of new intern orientation, they gave me an office, an account, and a copy of the Mazen assembly. From there, it is sink or swim. Remember, it's still 1993. There's no World Wide Web, there's no Google, or Wikipedia, or Stack Overflow. I've never written a line of x86 code in my life before, and they're expecting me to be productive immediately. I'm sitting in an office with a chair, a desk, a USB-C, and a network cable. And I can't overstress these strains of the fire part. It's not like it's Astel where they give the intern a token task that he can't screw up and won't cause a problem when he inevitably does anyway. In contrast, Microsoft has me working on the core code base for new features for MS-DOS, which is a multi-billion-dollar business. Bill Gates has us over to his house for a barbecue to talk about it over a few beers, and I'm supposed to act like this is all normal for me. They take their interns seriously. There are perhaps only 5 or 6 developers in total on MS-DOS, and most of that team is feverishly rewriting the hard disk compression engine to not use a hash table, which it turns out that the Stack Corporation managed to somehow get a patent on, and Microsoft lost a lawsuit over. Thus, it's me and one other intern developer responsible for pretty much every new feature in the operating system, including the new setup program. To ease into things at least a little, my first task was to make disk copies single pass. At least it's a standalone app that I can assemble and build, something I can get my head around and tinker with. The prior implementation was limited to RAM only, and so it would require many swaps to complete a disk copy. The hardest part is finding a safe place to store a temporary copy of the floppy disk when there are a million different possible system configurations. Remember, you accidentally store a temp file on a metered network share, and that's a class action lawsuit. If you assume the C drive is a hard drive, perhaps you crash a helicopter, an ATM, or a defibrillator. Who knows? That's the biggest trick in coding for a billion machines. It's like you're building one bowl to be released into an infinite number of China shops, and you've never seen any of them before. If it can break or go wrong, it will somewhere. It's truly a different philosophy of coding. My next task was to limit the RAM use of the double-space compression program. As you might recall, memory back then was limited to 640K on MS-DOS, so everything you could move above that barrier meant more free memory for useful things like applications. And the x86 has an interesting feature where your segment and your offset registers can add up to slightly more than 1 megabyte. Basically, your pointer wraps around the start of memory again. Sometimes. It actually depends. If the 820 keyboard line is high, then the pointers wrap around back to low memory. If the 820 line is low, then they point past the 1 meg boundary. I use that ugly hackery to move the engine up above the 1 meg boundary and stuff every function call into it with this funky pointer math and exploit the CPU bug, freeing up a ton of low memory. And that's the kind of thing that actually got magazine cover stories back in that day. Next was to attempt to save the company money by putting the upgrade on a single floppy disk. While MS-DOS 6.2 might ship on 4 or 5 disks, what if you already have MS-DOS 6.0? What I did was to write an upgrade system that patched the 6.0 binaries in place with the deltas to make them into 6.2 binaries, and discovered that all of those deltas combined were still small enough to fit on a single floppy. Thus, we were able to offer the MS-DOS 6.2 step-up upgrade on a single disk, saving several dollars per copy, multiplied by tens of millions of copies. A single little project by an intern generated millions in savings. And then the real work began. Because of my experience with HyperCache, they appointed me to write the Smart Drive cache engine to be more generic and support all kinds of block-level devices, most notably the CD-ROMs that were just coming into the market at the time. Caching made an epic performance difference on CDs. All of this work only took 3 months, which I still have trouble believing when I look back at it. If I had to schedule that amount of work now, I'd be looking at a year. But it's amazing what you can accomplish when you're young, broke, and hungry. Even though I felt I had done a good job, there was no guarantee that an internship would ever translate into a full-time position. When my summer was over, I came back to Regina to go back to class and hoped the phone might ring one day. Then I remember exactly where I was and what I was doing when that offer call came in that fall. I was being offered a full-time software design engineer position in Redmond with complete relocation benefits, visa and immigration assistance, the works. And the salary, are you ready? You all heard of the Microsoft millionaires of the era. Well, it was $35,000 a year. That's all they were paying, but I didn't care. I didn't negotiate. Whatever it was enough. I wasn't in it for the money, even if I thought I was at the time. It wasn't until the UPS drivers went on strike that summer that I found that they were making 50% more than I was. But I didn't really care, and there were these other things called stock options that worked out okay in the end, so don't feel bad for me. What I found especially interesting was to compare notes with the other new hires from places like MIT and Harvard. They got the exact same offer I did, right down to the penny. I don't know what it cost to go to Harvard, but I bet you could save 15% or more by switching to the U of R. Microsoft again suggested that when I fly down, I come through Toronto because they'd been having trouble in Vancouver. Too many Canadians coming down through there to work for Microsoft all of a sudden, and they were starting to push back hard on the visas. Toronto being a little silly, we agreed to compromise on Calgary. My fiance and I flew in, and I got taken into the big glass room for the immigration interview. As she watched from the outside, she could see him flailing his arms and turning red in the face and yelling. Clearly, I was headed back to Canada, and my Microsoft dreams were not to be. But what she didn't know, because she couldn't hear anything, was that he'd already long since stamped and approved my work visa. He was upset because every time he printed his form in Word, he would print a blank piece of paper at the end. It was wasting paper. Since I was going to Microsoft, he wanted me to fix it right there. That May, I flew back one weekend, convocated from the U of R on Friday, got married on Saturday, and then permanently relocated to the US on Monday. And by the way, if you're planning a wedding, I strongly endorse the approach of hiding in another country while all the hard decisions are made for you. And you just fly in the day before, fly back up, hassle-free. My Bob shirt. As for my career, other than that internship at MS-DOS, I managed to dodge the x86's ugly 16-bit mode entirely. While the 16-bit guys were feverishly working on Windows 95 on the other side of campus, we saw ourselves as the real programmers, working under Dave Cutler, who had just finished the VMS operating system in perfect hand-coded assembly language, and we produced real code in pure C for multiple platforms. In a somewhat ironic turn, I still didn't have a PC as my main machine, because I was assigned the job of porting the Win 95 user interface over to RISC chips, and so I had a MIPS R4000 workstation instead. Working at Microsoft before and after my final semester at school led to something I think is entertaining, although it might have been a source of annoyance to Dr. Hamilton at the time. I had went off before my 4th year to write the major portions of the world's most popular operating system. I guess it's perhaps somewhat fitting that I work on MS-DOS came in between the introduction to operating systems and the advanced operating systems class. If nothing else, if I wasn't the only guy in the operating systems class with a published OS under his belt, I bet mine was the best selling. I spent the majority of my career in Windows NT, actually, which became Windows NT XP, and is now, today, Windows 10. I continued to write projects at home as well, which I'd sell as shareware. One such example was a product called VisualZip that let you treat compressed zip archives as if they were regular directories, browsing down inside of them and so on. I was selling maybe a dozen copies a day when I received a call early one morning from Microsoft, who was interested in purchasing VisualZip for inclusion in the Windows operating system, and would I be interested in coming in to talk about it. I hadn't left for work yet, so I asked what their office number was so I could stop by. Well, this led to some awkward confusion until we finally realized the person I was talking to didn't know that I already worked there. They had just